What's going on, guys? It's Ian. I am here doing a quick breakdown of my race-winning NSR P68 from this weekend's NSR Classic Cup, sponsored by Professor Motor. I was able to take home this wonderful trophy presented by Mark Pollard, owner of Motown Raceway, and my guilty pleasure, I always love taking home the concourse trophy as well. So I put a lot of time and energy into the painting of the bodies, but it's not about that. It is about the car. And this weekend's race, just a really quick recap on it. It was a super cool event. It was the biggest race we've ever had at Motown, just in terms of the production. We had, live commentary between myself, Jim Rose, Mark Pollard. We had racers from out of town like Todd Ullery. We had all the usual gang. It was an incredible event. Great food, great friends, and I think the future is very bright at Motown. If you guys want to check them out, it's motownraceway.com. We just relaunched their website, and they also launched a new YouTube channel, so you can watch live streams of past races. So I got some stuff going on here. There's a little bit of flossing there. I got another car here, which I'm going to do another breakdown video of. This is Andrea Noviello's second place Mosler from the There he is, Andrea Noviello, from the NSR Western Championship at Electric Dreams. So I'm going to make another video for that, but stay tuned because that one will come up soon enough. But yeah, without further ado, this was a really great race. I only won this race by about a lap. Braden was super close. The whole weekend I was kind of thinking, this might be Braden's weekend because Braden is so fast at Motown, and we're all sharing stuff at Motown, which is really great. So Braden's got just as much setup stuff as I've got. And anyways, it was a great race. For most of the race, we were less than a half a lap apart, side by side even. So I'll start here. It's an NSR Classics Ford P68, custom painted by moi, and it's my normal West livery. So it is this is actually a Tropical Glitz paint. It's Tropical Glitz Solar Flare or Solar Red. And then we have I think it's by Gravity Colors. So it's got Gravity Colors McLaren Pearl Effect down in here, and you might be able to see it is kind of shimmery. And then we transition from that McLaren black pearl effect into McLaren silver, so there is like a little bit of a silver there that borders it, and then we go to the white. And this is just like the classic Mika Hakkinen. Mika is one of my favorite drivers, and I'll save the story for the whole West livery at some other point, but it's just, I love this livery. Not many people do it, and so it's always like a unique car on the track, which I think is a distinct advantage as a racer. You always want to be able to identify your car. So I also have an Interlagos miniature helmet. So I purchased that through Electric Dreams, and that's actually Fernando Alonso. I don't have any more Mika Hakkinen helmets because I've used them all. So it's got a fully detailed driver in there with like little fluorescent yellow gloves and whatnot. And then the little seats, are riveted. And then for whatever reason, I really like to just hand write my name on there just as like a little sort of homage to like vintage slot cars. And then we got some scale auto numbers on there, and then I'll show you the back. The back has the exhaust, and then the bottom has more solar flare, which I really like. I like that sort of super low look. So when it's like on the track, it just looks so low, which is really cool. So without further ado, I'll go through the car. So we run a lot of body float, and this started like 2 years ago or something like that, and we've been watching videos of the guys in Spain. And so this body you're going to see has a lot of body float, and it sits perfectly flat. So something that's really important for just consistency is making sure that the body doesn't rock on its axis when it's just sort of sitting, right? So front end, all four corners sit perfectly evenly, and that's really important. At Motown, we allow you to tape the chassis. So what I've actually done to achieve that is, I'll show you it in a little bit, but there's actually a little piece of tape down there, and the body sits on that little piece of tape. So let's go through, look at the bottom here. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. There we go. So I am using, I think they are SlotingPlus. I honestly don't totally know. They're just in my box, but they are really, really long SlotingPlus screws. I'm sorry, scale auto screws. I believe that they are suspension screws. So I will zoom in a ton on that. But you can see it is very long, has a lot of shoulder, and has a really, really large flat head. And you'll see in the front here, they fit perfectly in here. So there's very little like rocking. They just move perfectly up and down. And I've also made sure that the body doesn't touch anywhere. So that's also super important. So let's take the rest of these out. I'll try to keep the car in the frame here. All right, so we're going to separate this, and I'll show you the inside of the body first. So the body is, I think this came out to like 16.68, and it's got all the parts. It's all been sonic welded in there. One thing that I have done is the driver has a little teeny bit of wiggle. So it's just not bound up, you know. So if the body does twist, which this body doesn't have very much twist, it doesn't get bound up in there. It's not doing anything to prevent the body from moving. And then the engine is the same way. So it's all in there, but it's just not applying any stress. So that is the body. You can see I did not cut off his legs. His legs are already cut off. And I'm gonna put this aside. So here is the car. I use the black chassis, red pod. It's an orange pod, but it's red. It just is like one of the older ones. No particular reason. I just have a bunch of them, and I run that color. It's not any different. We ran a Spec NSR Supergrip, basically a WRE tire, and it's like the equivalent of a Supergrip in a custom gray. That was done by Mark Pollard to make sure that the cars all were easy to identify and tech. So they're all gray tires, and then 4 wheel inserts were required for the rules. The rules dictated that we could only use Professor Motor weights in the 3 designated spots, so very much a la Electric Dreams. The gearing was open, so I did choose to use SlotingPlus gears. You know, both Todd and I really love these SlotingPlus gears. They're just money, and they're really smooth, super consistent. I will say that over the weekend I did have one bad one, but it's the first time I've ever had a bad SlotingPlus gear. So really super good gears. Anything that Miguel makes at SlotingPlus is really, really nice, high quality. I am also using SlotingPlus axles, and I have the part number here. So I am using the SlotingPlus 55mm stainless axle. These are so consistent that I just take them out of the package and use them. So most of the time, this is just like the go-to, as much as it's legal. I've had other axles where it's not perfectly straight, and Todd has checked so many of those axles that it's just like a gimme, like, oh, it's going to be straight. So use those front and back. Where do we want to go? Let's go to the front real quick. I'll show you the underside of the car and the front. So we were allowed to use the wood guide, and this is one of the new ones. Just again, no reason. It's what was available. So it's a wood NSR guide, and there's nothing special. There is one tiny spacer under there. The braid depth at Motown is pretty deep. but I still do run on the front tires. So that is just there to ensure that it's super smooth. And something I picked up from Rick Jockum several years ago, running the wires in like that tends to make the guide center really, really well. So thank you, Rick, for that. So going back to the bottom here, I'll talk to you about some of the pieces, maybe some of the methodologies behind it. There's a little bit of grease there. So I used Slot.it Zero grips. They were allowed to be coated, but I did not coat them. They are just trued and, you know, off the drum, but very nicely rounded, which allows them to not, you know, bind up in the corners. They're super, it was super smooth. It's super smooth. That's actually not super smooth, but yeah, just a little bound up right now. But anyways, I can assure you that it is super smooth. We were allowed to use the spacers, which go in here. Those are NSR 4mm axle spacers. And NSR cars all work this way, where you can put a 4mm spacer in here, and it basically becomes a pseudo bushing. So it doesn't have any front to back play. The same can actually be done for Slot.it cars too. So if you're attending the Slot.it Nationals this year, I would recommend you use the bushings in the front too, because it makes the car really, really consistent. So from there, we have a 16mm stock wheel, just with the, I think it's a Ford insert, just kind of a cool look, and the Slot.it Zero grips, like I said. Just trued down. I don't know the diameter off the top of my head, but it's probably somewhere in the range of 17 millimeters. I know that the rears were 18.1, and those are a bit smaller. So I'm thinking like 17.5 to 17 millimeters. And what you will notice, let's go here, is I'll show you the ride height of the car. So we are, sorry, bear with me here. I'm gonna use the, let's see, 30 thou. So there you go. All right, so that's where it was riding. So I'm running, the rules require a 0.8mm clearance in the rear, and I'm basically, I'm going to try to tilt this so that you get it. I'm basically running that all the way around. I'm running a super neutral rake all the way down. The front is a teeny bit lower than the rear, but it's just pretty much 0.8 all the way around. And what I've found is that running the car flat with the surface of the track provides a really neutral balance. Having the front down low is going to make the car a bit tippy on corner exit, and then having the front high is going to make the car a bit loose, you know, corner entry, mid corner, I think. And I've just found so many times that this works well that I've just done this as a de facto. But that's kind of the reasoning behind it, just the anecdotal feedback that I've had. As I mentioned, these are NSR Spec tires, Supergrips. These are 16mm low profile air wheels, so that the 50/18, and they have the low profile lip, or shoulder, I should say. And then these do have foam inserts inside. And I actually have some examples here, which I will move this out of the way and pull this out. So these are the tires. This is an example of one that started the weekend as an Inter. It's kind of worn down a little bit. And you'll see the super glue. It's not the prettiest, but hey, it's not coming off, right? Really nice rounded shoulders. And the foam is going to be hard to see inside, but it is in there. So I'm using the SlotingPlus, or the Scale Racing Ernie Mazzetti foam. It is this. Let's see here. So they are the SR 1551 from Scale Racing. You can buy these. There's a couple people who sell these. They're really, really good. I highly recommend foam inserts. I can do a demonstration on that in another video, but I can tell you it's pretty cool. And I learned a lot from Mr. Joel Johnson, who attended our Slot.it Nationals last year, and he helped me crazy amount just understanding tires and what they're doing in the corner. So shout out to Joel Magic Johnson. Thank you very much for all of your help and everything you do. And yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'm also running the Coford Gold Hollow set screws. I've found that those pretty much balance out the wheels as they are. So I'm not adding like putty or anything inside really anymore. I'm just adding those gold screws, and I just know that it's pretty balanced as it is. So yeah, that's the wheel and tire package. So let's go back to the car. And what else do we want to say? The gear ratio was 14:30, and earlier in the weekend we had done 14:31, and then we kind of moved to 14:30 as the grip came up and the cars were coming off the corner better. So we went down in order to get a little better roll off the corner, a little bit better speed off the corner. There is a very small spacer between the gear and the bushing, and then spacers between the gear and the bushing there. No axle tube is allowed. They are stock bushings. Bearings were not allowed. We were using the NSR Shark 21.5 motor. I have actually gone ahead and taped the label, so that might be why you're seeing it glossy right there, because they tend to just disintegrate. So I did tape it, so that like when you spray it with motor spray and stuff, it doesn't just fall apart. And I think it looks completely trash. And how it looks is how it finishes, right? Yeah, you know it. Yeah. Anyways, so in terms of the weight, we're using Professor Motor weights. We got, let's see here, 4 weights here. I'm going to try to do the math in my head. That's like 10 grams, I think. 2.5, and then 5 here. And I played with this over the weekend. I felt like I took all the weight out. I put all the weight forward. I'll put all the weight back to get more rear grip. I just found like this was very, very neutral. And at the end of the day, a neutral car is much easier to drive than a car that maybe leans, more towards more grip, less grip. You can kind of predict what's going on here. And that's really kind of like my whole tuning methodology, is just to create cars that are very neutral, so that, if I make mistakes, you don't see them. So that's the point. So like my controller settings are super neutral. The car is super neutral. It's got a ton of body float. It just makes the car way more consistent at the limit. And then I know where the limit is, and I can kind of make a little bit of an error here, a little bit of error there, and it's always with me. So I always shoot for a slightly conservative setup than one that is going all the way out. So like for this race, a bunch of people ran the 917, a bunch of guys ran the GT40, and I knew that my main competition they were all running the P68. So I just made a decision that I was just going to run the P68, and I was just going to roll with all those guys, because that way I knew I'm in the ballpark, right? I'm not like taking a gamble. And for me, I don't take a lot of gambles with my racing. I like to be super in the middle, and I never really have the fastest car. I never really have the fastest times for the most part. I usually just make up for it with smooth and staying in, and that ends up usually having good results. So what else? I'll talk to you about the pod movement a little bit. So the last weekend before this race, we had a warm-up race, and I did not have this tape here. And so the pod had, a lot of float, front to back, right to left. And what we found over the weekend, or what I found, I guess, is that I felt like the tape added some side dampening. Let's see if I can, it's going to be really hard to get this, but sorry, when you hold it right there, it doesn't move. Let's see. There you go. Sorry, the pods are, the wings of the chassis are so soft, you can manipulate them. So it does have side-to-side play, which allows, it's so hard to do. Oh my God, here. So it does have a little side-to-side play. So I found that the tape is that it came off the corner much more, had a much better launch off the corner and a much smoother exit. The less tape allowed the car to be more free, but the conditions were kind of difficult and I just needed a little bit more grip. I also found that a lot of guys are running the black chassis. The white chassis. I found that I think a lot of people misunderstand the chassis firmness and bear with me while I try to explain this, but like I think that the chassis flexibility here is really like a good source of mechanical grip. And what I see a lot of is I see a lot of people using a white or a green chassis and then they polish the crap out of their tires. And what you're doing is you are reducing chassis, or reducing mechanical grip, and then increasing like tire grip. And so my thought on that is that your car is going to get in the corner, it's going to grip, 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 and then just break away, right? And if you have a softer chassis and maybe a harder tire, you're going to make up for that loss of stickiness here, but a less sticky tire is more consistent. And at the limit, it's going to just slide out a little bit more. It's not going to just break away and suddenly jolt away. So I've started to move predominantly to the softer chassis and harder tires so that I can build in some linear breakaway into the cars. Again, my cars are not the fastest cars, but they're very easy to drive at the limit. And that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to make good race cars. What else can I say about this? I'm running an NSR 2.2 shank big head screw right there to reduce front to back. And then these are Slot.it, I don't know the part numbers, but they're the small head, like 6mm screws. And then it does have the stock, let's see here, it has the stock pod nuts. And here you can see that little piece of tape that I was talking about. It's a little piece of body bulletproofing from 124 scale cars. And you'll see this guy has this little standoff here. So, some cars have those little set screws that come up and help you level the body. I just did that with a little piece of tape and it worked great. I'm also running 2 screws and I did glue the motor in with B7000 almost all the way around. So it eliminates the motor flexing in the pod. Let's see, I can probably show you a little bit. See, it still flexes. So all those guys who are like, oh, the motor's screwed in, it still flexes, guys. So, consider that. Like when you yank the throttle, it's putting torque on that and it could be affecting your car. So I'm just putting that out there. Not that I know anything. Hey, moving on. See what else. NSR super thin braids. Used them literally 2 weekends. Totally fine. I'll probably replace them for the next one, but yeah, super, super low wear. And it's an NSR 14 tooth angle winder pinion, I think, sidewinder pinion. I don't remember, but they came stock on the Moslers for Electric Dreams. And I think that's it. I will say that the last thing, I kind of forgot about this, but the front wheels are on the track. So that is something that I set up all my cars, and you can see here the left to right is very even. Let's see. There you go. Left to right, super even. Sometimes I even use, it's a little fuzz there. Sometimes I even use a feeler gauge just to check that. You're talking about a car that's tiny. These little things matter. These little gaps, making sure that things are even. All that stuff really matters. And like I've said, you do 100 things, you get a lap. That's it. And then you got to finish the deal yourself. You can't. There's no cheat code. There's no magic car. It's about building a car that is good at the limit that you can push, and then you got to do the rest of the work. So that is my teardown of my NSR P68 Classic Cup winning car, sponsored by Professor Motor. Shout out to Professor Motor for sponsoring the event. We really appreciated everything, all the prizes. Definitely check out Professor Motor. And thanks to Mark Pollard and all of the guys. And as always, shout out to my girlfriend Ashley, who's in the other room, who's allowing me to film this video. See you guys on the next one. And like I said, coming up next. Bye.